Um, okay. So setting up for your live
Cool.
and it's loading. And here we are.
Good morning, everyone. How's it going? This is Brian and Rena from Local Contractor Marketing. This October, I mean, being that we're in spooky season, we're going to talk a little bit about some scary stories and some things that we've seen throughout our our experience in digital marketing and search engine optimization. So, good morning, RJ. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Just hanging out, thinking of some interesting experiences that we've had in the past with clients and stories and good. Just happy to be back in Colorado right now too with everyone, a fam.
Nice. That's awesome. Hopefully you had a great flight back and hopefully it was uneventful. So,
Yeah, for once it was. That was great.
yeah, that's fantastic to hear. Awesome. So, scary stories. I'm sure that both of us have quite a bit that we could potentially dive into on this, just from people losing their domains to not getting them back to hosting and maintenance, security, hiring reputable versus unreputable companies, and the list goes on and on and on. So again, for spooky season, one of the things we wanted to do is talk about some of the scary stories or even horror stories that we've recently and in the past seen for clients. So RJ,
I've got a good
let's
one.
okay. You
I've
go
got a
first.
good one.
Gather around the campfire, right?
Gather round, my children, as we do tales from the crypt. No, that's really old. Uh, I was talking to a painting contractor a couple of weeks ago, and he's had a site for many, many years. I'm talking 10 years. The dude who developed his website died. He was hosting it, he was maintaining it, and this business did not have access to their domain. They weren't paying for the URL. They didn't have any ability to get access of their site. And he had reached out to the dead dude and and wasn't getting anything back. And then finally got word through the grapevine that he had passed. And he had
Oh
a
man.
website that was income producing. It was ranking for a ton of organic keywords.
Oh
The
man.
whole thing, he had to hire someone. This is prior to talking to me. He had hired another guy to scrape the site and to pull whatever information he could from it to rebuild it and then relaunch it. But you could see the data in the back. It just went
Just
and then
off a cliff, huh?
yeah, up just a little bit and then up just a little bit and then down again. And it
Oh
was
man.
heartbreaking to
Well,
yeah,
because you put in all of that effort, all of that time building your brand, and I think that that's the 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 solution for it really is making sure you understand where your key elements to your website are. Who is your domain registrar, right?
yeah,
Who hosts your website? Do you have a backup of those things? Are you periodically, in the company that you're hosting with or that's managing your site, are they keeping it at, on a server at their office or their house, or do they have it in multiple places where if you need to pull it down, you can? I think that's probably my biggest takeaway from that situation is we've run into that as well where people don't know, like they don't know who hosts their website. They don't know who, manages their domain. And those are really, really critical things that any business should know. Um, I think just as adding value into the group, I just thought of this. We could probably put like a little checklist down below that people could potentially download, uh, so that you have some of these key elements in your business. Um, we'll make sure that we get that out to
yeah.
any of the
Most
listeners.
company
But
owner, most businesses, they don't understand the difference between, and it took me years. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong, I wasn't like out of the womb and I understand all of this stuff that we're talking about, right?
right.
I had to learn the difference between the registrar and where we get our URL at versus where it's hosted
Yeah.
versus what website maintenance and cybersecurity and IT work. And then, it's built on WordPress Elementor versus the template that everything is built on. Like it took me
Yeah.
years to, prior to doing digital marketing, figure out what all of this stuff actually is and why it's important.
And again, that's why I think, hiring a reputable company is really, really important. One of the things that I've seen, beyond just the hosting and maintenance, obviously hosting, you want to make sure that you have uptime, that your site doesn't continually crash, that it doesn't go down. Unfortunately, I've seen that happen as well, and that has very, very detrimental effect on your ability to market the site, right? If you say that you're open 24/7, but half the time your site's up and down and up and down, Google doesn't like to see that. The
I
other
don't
thing
think
that we've
so.
seen kind of dovetailing in the idea of making sure that you hire a reputable company and making sure that there is that transparency on who's hosting it, what do they offer, what do they include, what do they not include. You really want to understand that some hosting companies include email, some do not include email. You have to purchase that through, say, Google Workspace or Microsoft 365. So understanding that is really important, and also understanding where those things are hosted is very, very important. Um, on the subject of email, that's another thing that I often tend to see is just making sure that you have
Understood.
cybersecurity and all of your basic information kind of put together. By default, unfortunately, Google Workspace does not secure your email. So one of
Hmm.
probably the worst horror stories that I've seen
Please tell me.
is that there are three records, your DKIM, your DMARC, and SPF. Now, if that sounds all like Greek, don't worry. That's stuff that reach out to us and we're happy to, talk you through that or provide you some resources. But Google Workspace does not actually set this stuff up for you. So
Hmm.
unfortunately, a bad actor can go in there and with just a few lines of code, send email to you, as you, from you, and you would never be any wiser. You would not know that this is being done without your consent nor permission. So this is something again that like it honestly takes us about 2 minutes to run a scan on a website and we can tell you whether or not those records are in place. But that is probably one of the biggest horror stories that I've seen. I mean, who could you imagine that? Having an email sent out on your behalf that you had no idea the contents of the email, who it was being sent to, or it's as if you've given someone access to your email account without them actually having access to your email account. That's a really scary thing,
I had that
considering that,
happen a couple of weeks ago. I got one of those emails
oh
and it
man,
said contract. It was a company that I was waiting to get a contract signed or information on whether we were going to move forward. And they had gotten hacked. And I got this beautiful email. It says contract, need you to log in for information. And I started logging in. Then it asked me for my email and then it asked me for my password. And I was like,
wait a
yeah,
minute.
there's something up with this. And when I reached out to the individual who had sent it, that person was in tears. Like, I've been getting calls all day. I had over 500 of those contract emails sent out from a professional. I'm talking like a big, big,
Big company.
big company. And it was ugly. And I mean, could have been worse. I let this person know it could have been worse and not to worry about it.
Yeah, but
But
something
that
to definitely
happened.
pass on to their IT department or whoever's handling their
Yeah.
email. That is it, it's absolutely just horrifying that that kind of stuff can happen, and as you've described, it does happen. So that's one of the big things that I would say is like from a horror story, just understanding like where everything is, making sure that you're hiring someone that actually is experienced and understands these things and that can help get you to that next level when it comes to, having you focus on your business, right? The last thing you want to do in spooky season or any season for that matter, is to be looking over your shoulder as if the monster is going to be jumping right out, out of the shadows and sending emails on your behalf or
Hmm.
on behalf of your company, or having something go down, having someone inadvertently get access to
Do
your
you
your stuff.
do you have a story of like a bad agency that somebody had hired or something? Can you tell me one of those stories?
Unfortunately, more than I can count on
Share
a
one.
couple
Share one.
pairs of hands.
What happened?
So the long and the short of it was the company had set up registrar, so they actually owned the URL,
The agency did.
website.com. The agency, or yeah, the company that was setting all this up, owned it.
Hmm.
The customer had no idea who owned this, how it was set up. The agency also, on their behalf, instead of setting up a website.com, webmaster at website.com or webmaster, whatever, to set up all of their accounts under, this was set up under the agency. So
Hmm.
agency.com, the Google business was set up via that. The
Oof.
analytics was set, literally everything was set up via the agency instead of the business. Unfortunately, when they severed ties with that agency, the agency now owns everything. And so when they had decided to change, the agency was like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Kind of with a little bit of a devilish grin,
Hmm.
and was saying, "By the way, for us to release your domain, it's going to cost you $5,000
After they
to
had been a
get your
client of
domain back."
theirs.
Yes. And
That's
so
messed up.
this is unfortunately, it's a common thing that I tend to see. Um, a reputable company would be like, yeah, sure, no problem. Depending on what your contract states. I've seen some where it's, you rent the website for a year and then it's yours. It's kind of a rent to own kind of
Hmm.
thing. I'm not crazy about that. I would just, in most cases, just build me a website and then we do the handoff and then the website is yours. Scot free, you're good to go. But I have seen some really interesting models. Rank and Rent is an interesting one that I've seen, where I've seen some businesses, kind of like the gentleman that had passed away, that you'd mentioned. I've seen some businesses get involved with uh, Rank and Rent, which is we build a website, we rent it to you, but you don't technically own that. Personally, and if you've been following our channel for any amount of time, you've known that brand is a lot of what we focus on, making sure you build that brand, that you become that household name
Hmm.
amongst your potential customers. That's really, really tough to do when you know that you don't actually own your website. At any given time, someone could pass away, or they could decide to withhold your website for future payment or whatever the case. So that's one of the biggest horror stories that I wish people would really understand, is like, understand where your assets are. And especially like once we start getting out of immediately what's tied to your website, it's good to know where those things are at, but you may or may not have access to it. But at its core and at the foundation, you really need to know where your website is at, who's the registrar, where is it hosted, what kind of access do you have, and understand, like, have all of that at least written down in a nifty little document. Again, we'll provide one of those for the group. You'll just have to sign up and download it from below. But I think that that's one of the things that is really, really important for any business owner that wants to be taken seriously, to understand that, like, you do have to, there is a little bit of understanding and organization that you would have to put in place.
Just a little bit. It's so worth it though. I can't even tell you the
Totally.
number of times I have current clients asking me questions about their domain or where it's at, and we make sure that all of our clients own their registrar domain.
At the
And
very least, right? You know,
yeah, I just want to make sure that they have it just in case. Like, It's so important. That's everything. That's where we've invested all of our time, and that's the sellable digital asset. Like
Totally. So on that,
everything.
this could be more of a, hypothetical spooky story. I have seen this happen, but imagine if you didn't own that registrar, you didn't own the actual .com. Again, maybe someone passes away, maybe someone just goes MIA or worse or whatever. But imagine if you had your trucks wrapped in it, if you had branded apparel, if you had letterhead, business cards, all of that with website.com that you now no longer own. That just makes my gut clench. It like that's a spooky story in and of itself right there. Imagine what that would look like. And it's not that far fetched to think that if you lost that domain, what's that look like for your business?
Right?
The
Like a lot of our, even the vehicle wraps, 3,500 each, maybe less, maybe more, but 3,500 each. You have 10 vehicles and they have the website.com on there, and then that goes down. And it's not
it's
mine.
not like something you could just take a Sharpie to or an eraser, right? Just like
Right? Holy cow.
and imagine like the brand that you've built behind it, the reputation you've built behind it. Like if you think about even, all of the other assets, your Google business profile, your like I said, apparel, signage outside of your business.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially if you had a big sign that was up on the side of a building, or you actually had a plaque or any kind of business signage outside, like potentially have to change that.
The gravity of this is just layer after layer hitting me. That's massive.
Yeah,
Like I mean, we have a lot of, you and I have a lot of digital assets, which are a little bit
absolutely.
easier to switch over. And we work with so many dudes in the trades, contractors that are painting
Yeah.
companies, custom home builders, HVAC, electrician, like, and the fleet vehicles that they have, the
Oh yeah.
amount of wow, pride that goes into everything that they've developed. Yeah,
That's a spooky story for
that's heavy.
them.
That's a good one to close with for now too. I like talking to you about these things too. We'll do this one again
Yeah.
in a
All
couple of
throughout all
weeks.
throughout October, spooky season, we'll have
Yeah,
several other horror stories and spooky stories that we can tell you about some of the crazy things we've seen in digital marketing. But um, absolutely, I would say like, subscribe, sign up down below, ask us questions. If you have a spooky story down that you've experienced, or if you've had any of these things happen to you where it's the between hiring a reputable company or knowing where your assets are located at, definitely comment down below. We'll have that checklist for you. And I think that, you know, hopefully we can get people out of the spooky season and into more of the
yeah,
safe and, you know,
yeah.
more managed kind of component. So,
Let's get into the gift of giving and
right. Can't wait for that one. So awesome. Well,
awesome. Well,
thank you.
next week, real quick, next week we have Rachel joining us.
Ooh,
She's amazing, Rachel B. Lee, and she'll be talking to us about brand and 4 ways to establish a good brand. And then, Brian, do you have anything coming up that you'd like to share with everyone?
uh, so other than something in 2026, not at this time.
Okay.
2026, we've got a couple things that we're working on planning, uh, both for local contractor marketing and just personally for both of our brands. And so, yeah, that we'll get more details as that comes up, but we'll keep that one maybe for the gift of for the season of giving.
Yeah.
And for the current time, yeah, I can't wait for next week. Next week is going to be awesome. Really looking forward to that.
Cool. All right. Well,
Awesome.
thanks everybody. We'll see you next week and keep your accounts secured.
All right.